Hello, in my first video I showed how easy it is to make watercolors that also contain less toxic pigments. Today I'll show you my color palette consisting of these very colors. The same color palette can also be applied to oil paints as I make them myself. In the second part of the video I show you how I make and tube them. The yellow tones in my color palette are nickel titanium yellow and light gold ochre, spinel yellow and light iron oxide red. For the white tone I use titanium white, and for the sand tone natural titanium white. The reddish tones are terra di sienna, French red ochre, light iron oxide red, terra patchouli, synthetic carmine red. The brown tones are iron oxide brown, caput mortuum and reddish ultramarine blue. For the black tones I use iron oxide black and a mixture of iron oxide black, titanium white and ultramarine blue. The blue tones are ultramarine violet, light ultramarine blue and reddish ultramarine blue, spinel blue, dark spinel turquoise, light spinel turquoise. And finally the green tones are synthetic lime green, chromium oxide green, green earth, umber, greenish umber and a mixture of chrome oxide green, greenish umber, iron oxide black and reddish ultramarine blue. This color palette of self-mixed watercolors leaves nothing to be desired, and as an ambitious watercolor painter completely satisfies me. Nevertheless, I can always create new shades from the existing pigments and expand my color palette. Or I can add new pigments. My most recent additions were the sand tone shade made from natural titanium dioxide, the off-black shade and the green shade mix. Now we come to oil paints. As I already mentioned, this color palette can also be applied to oil paints. However, I want to clarify here what the biggest difference is from the common color palette that you can buy everywhere. In my last video I already talked about the light-fast and non-toxic spinel pigments. I used them in blue, turquoise and yellow. The biggest challenge, however, is replacing cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, cadmium red, magenta and crimson alizarin red, which mostly consist of toxic pigments. For this reason, I've listed these colors here again along with my color variations. I was able to easily replace some of these colors with my paints, but it's clear that I haven't yet succeeded in replacing cadmium red and cadmium orange. That doesn't mean they can't be replaced. I'm sure there are largely non-toxic and light-fast red pigments on the market. I've just gotten along fine without them so far. My previous replacements for the stronger reds were the synthetic pigments cochineal red and carmine red. However, these are not 100% light-fast, I rarely use them. So here's the color palette of yellows and reds again. I replaced the cadmium lemon yellow with nickel titanium yellow, spinel yellow and a mix of both. I replaced the cadmium yellow with two ochre variants and a mix of spinel yellow and iron oxide red. I replaced the cadmium orange with a mix of terra patchouli and spinel yellow, iron oxide red and spinel yellow. I replaced the cadmium red with terra patchouli and a mix of iron oxide red and spinel yellow. I replaced the alizarin crimson red with carmine red and a mix of carmine red and ultramarine blue. I replaced the permanent magenta with cochineal red and a mix of cochineal red and ultramarine blue. Next, I show you how I make the oil paints and tube them. For this, I'll use 3 colors that I need anyway. They are green, spinel yellow and a mix of titanium white and zinc white. First we'll take a thick glass plate. I simply had a spare glass cupboard shelf that I used for this. We'll also need a spatula and a scraper, pliers, something to roll with, baking paper, poppy seed oil and linseed oil, and empty tubes and of course the pigments. We'll mix the respective pigments with the oil. For light pigments like white, yellow or blue, we use poppy seed oil, as it's less prone for yellowing. For all other pigments, we use linseed oil. You can also use walnut oil or mix linseed oil with walnut oil or poppy seed oil. The subject of linseed oil is a science in itself. There are different types. Ultimately, all linseed oils yellows over time. I use refined linseed oil or pure cold-pressed linseed oil. To allow air to escape, we first make a hole in the opening of the tube. Once we've made a smooth paste, we can pour it into tubes. Therefore, we cut small squares from the baking paper and place the oil paint on them. We wrap them so that they fit into the tube. Before filling, the back and the front of the paper roll must remain clean. Next, we press in the paint and press the end of the tube and carefully pull the paper out. We press and fold the end of the tube. Pliers can also be helpful here. Now we do the same with the other colors.